Senator Graham and then Senator Durbin.
Thank you to my colleagues, Senator Tillis,
Back and forth.
Booker, and Coons. I really enjoyed working with you, trying to find a way forward for the country. Special counsels by nature are unique, and they should be, and this came about as a conflict. There is no proof of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians that I've seen, but the point is that the campaign is under investigation. Senator Attorney General Sessions made the right call to say, I can't be part of investigating the Trump campaign because I was a key member of it. I think Mr. Rosenstein is doing a good job, and hopefully he and Mr. Mueller will do this in a professional manner, and I see no evidence they're doing anything other than that. We'll get an answer to all these questions pretty soon. But one thing I do want to just build on what Senator Leahy said. My motivation for this is to make sure that we're a nation of laws, that no moment in time can overcome the rule of law, and that we'll have special counsel protections in perpetuity, because I can see where in the future this may arise. There'll be a conflict, and judicial review of a for-cause removal is probably good for the country. We're not saying you can't fire somebody. We're saying somebody's going to look over your shoulder in these hotly contested political environments. But Senator Leahy said something I want to build on. Impartial law enforcement is one of the key concepts of the rule of law. To my colleagues on the other side, where have you been? Have you not read what's going on regarding the lead investigator, Mr. Strzok, of the Clinton email investigation, and Ms. Page? You can have all the political views you want as a law enforcement officer, but you can't put your thumb on the scale. You can't take your biases and put your thumb on the scale. If you don't like one candidate, fine, but if you're investigating the other, just do it professionally. This is an email, August 15th, 2016. I want to believe that the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, and who is Andy, by the way, that there's no way he gets elected, talking about Trump, but I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40. This is the head investigator talking about investigating the Clinton email scandal, talking to a member girlfriend in the Department of Justice. There's no way he gets elected, but I'm afraid we can't take that risk. Can you imagine the shoe on the other foot? You had an FBI agent and a lawyer in the Department of Justice talking all the time about how bad the Democratic candidate was, and we need to do what we can to help the Republican candidate. This is stunning. He's been dismissed by Mr. Mueller, but I am not going to stop, because you can say a lot of things about the Clinton email investigation. You can't say that the people in charge of it were impartial. Now, the private server was taken out and beaten with a hammer. It was scrubbed with chemicals. They defied a court order to turn over the server to the FBI. The bottom line here is that when you look into what happened to the Clinton email investigation, it was anything but impartial. Mr. McCabe has been dismissed based on a recommendation by the Inspector General because he was leaking information contrary to the Department of Justice rules about the Clinton Foundation. The FISA warrant against Mr. Carter Page, the dossier that was used by the court, provided by the FBI, was compiled by a foreign agent, Mr. Christopher Steele, who was on the payroll of Fusion GPS, who was being paid by the Democratic National Committee and the Clinton campaign to do opposition research against candidate Trump. They paid him $168,000. He went to Russia to compile a dossier. Where do you think he got the information from in Russia? How hard would it be for Russian intelligence services to play him like a fiddle? The dossier was compiled, and at the time it was submitted to the court, there was zero effort to validate it. None. Salacious allegations against candidate Trump, now President Trump. What would happen if the shoe were on the other foot? That if the Republican Party had paid a private organization to hire a foreign agent to go over to Russia to investigate a Democrat candidate, it was used by the Justice Department, given to the courts without any validation, it'd be front page news everywhere. If you care about the rule of law, you ought to care about this. Mr. Page was being looked at by the FBI, but the warrant applications, the main reason they gave the warrant is because Mr. Steele had been used in the past in a reliable fashion, and the dossier was the supporting documentation the court relied upon. If you don't believe me, look into the file. So if you care anything about the rule of law, wouldn't you want some correction of this problem, somebody to be held accountable, and let the court know in the future, oh, by the way, this document is being prepared by somebody who hates the candidate they're looking at, and you need to look at what Mr. Steele's attitude about this was. He told Mr. Orr that he's desperate that Trump not get elected. He told the FBI when he was an informant for them, a source, that he was not using the dossier for political purposes. He had not given it to the media. He was lying. He had given the dossier to the media, contrary to what he said to the FBI, because he's being sued in British court for defamation, and in the court filing, he admits to giving it to the press while working for the FBI. Now, in October, the FBI discovered this, and when they asked him, why did you do it? And here's what he said to Mr. Orr. Well, when y'all reopened the Clinton investigation, I thought that was really unfair, and I had to do it. Political as you can possibly be, motivated for political reasons, gave the dossier out, according to his own words, because he didn't like what the FBI did about reopening the Clinton email investigation. That should bother everybody in this country. Mr. Orr, his #1 contact, who is he? He's the 4th guy in the FBI, in the Department of Justice. His wife worked for Fusion GPS, for God's sake. His wife worked with Mr. Steele. Can you imagine how it would be on the other side? So, I am glad we did this today for the special counsel. I stand with my colleagues on the other side, on this side, that President Trump somehow tried to fire Mr. Rosenstein or get rid of Mueller. It would blow up in his face. It'd be the worst decision of his presidency. It'd create a crisis for this country. We don't need that. Let's move forward in a professional way. But I promise you this, that if you believe that law enforcement should be impartial, then you should care about what I'm saying. If you believe that the 4th person in the Department of Justice should tell everybody his wife works for a research fund, a firm paid by the Democratic Party and the Democratic nominee, and that the person they hired hated candidate Trump, went to Russia to get a bunch of garbage, and the court used all that without being informed, then that goes to the heart of the rule of law also. And I cannot believe we don't have a special counsel for this. This, to me, undermines, as much as anything else, the way the system should work. Bias everywhere, wanting to get a result, damn the process. Thank you.
Senator